Former Saints linebacker frustrated with Derek Carr saga. Why New Orleans must add veteran quarterback. Ladies and gentlemen, this is After Review with Mad Moscona, and I'm assuming they're going to talk to Scott Shanle. So Scott Shanle, selling seashells by the seashore, put out a tweet that lambasted Derek Carr, which I actually replied to because he was cooking, and I respect it. All right, so I mean, this Derek Carr thing is insane in every single way. It's one of the craziest stories. It really, like, sometimes I have to step back and say, is this just crazy or is this just insane because it is the New Orleans Saints and that's who we focus on? Or is this just generally nuts? I think generally it's nuts. Like, I think generally this story would be crazy. I mean, just every single piece of it. Derek Carr's Rolls Royce review, everything is nuts about this. So let's go ahead and listen to Matthias, and we're going to react along the way, shall we?
And what a week. What a 5-day period it's been for the New Orleans Saints. Always appreciate getting Scott Shanle's perspective. Super Bowl champion, the guy who played for this organization, has covered the organization, working with CST and Your View, and is good enough to hang out with us here for a couple of minutes. Scott, we appreciate it, man. How are you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing good.
Hey, man, if I asked you big picture, your take on the last 5 days, the drama, saga, whatever adjective you want to use, about Derek Carr, just 10,000-foot view, how would you sort of summarize how you feel about it?
Well, it went from unfortunate to really frustrating. You look at the lack of success the organization has had the last few years, and I think, you can point to injuries. Wouldn't wait too many injuries. Pelicans went through the same thing, so maybe that's something they need to look at. But when it comes to there's one thing you want certainty around, and that's the head coaching position. The Saints went out and hired a new coach. The next thing is you need certainty around the quarterback position, and it's really frustrating and a little bit angering that the guys report for the offseason and your starting quarterback who your owner has been loyal enough to pay $40 million a year to, doesn't show up and all of a sudden has a shoulder injury. And I think that's really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, when you're talking about, because a lot of people say, well, Derek and the Saints fans don't, agree, and there's some toxicity and whatever. But if you look at the actual team and the actual front office and what they've given them, they've kind of been over backwards for Derek. And this is not a situation like with the Raiders where, when Derek's time ended with the Raiders, there was a lot of toxicity with the coaches and all of that and with him. And, that's well documented, but that's not the case here. The case here is that he had his guy as the head coach up until halfway through last season. And now he's got Kellen Moore and he's got paid the monies, big monies, guaranteed monies. So the front office, like, they do, I think they are the big loser in this as far as, like, who really got sideswiped, because they gave him the cash. They expected him to be there. They expected him to be the quarterback. They expected him to honor his word and honor the contract. And, just because a player says, I want to be traded, if a team can't do it, or if it doesn't benefit the team, they're not going to do it. Like, that is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, he is the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. If you're Mickey Loomis or Gail Benson or whoever in the front office, like, there's 40 million reasons why Derek should be the quarterback for the Saints this year. And the fact that he says, hey, thanks for the cheddar, but I'm not leaving California. I'm holding y'all hostage. That has to be insanely frustrating for the front office because it puts them in a horrible position.
Diana Rossini had the report, I'm sure you saw, where, and I'm paraphrasing, she effectively said the feeling around the league is that the shoulder injury is really just trade bait from Derek Carr and his side, that they want to be moved. I don't know, Scott. I mean, you've been in locker rooms and you've been around negotiations and things. Like, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I don't know. She's trusting her sources, and she's really the only one who has said that. Again, if that's true, that's frustrating. It's frustrating as a fan because you're sitting there saying, who are you mad at? Are you mad at the organization or are you mad at the player? And I think you look at it and you say, as the organization, you need to come out and say what your plan is. If the player doesn't want to be there, you get rid of him. I think it's as simple as that, especially to me. if Derek wants to be there, Derek wants to be there, and he has to play well enough to beat out a young guy, because there's no doubt they're going to draft somebody, and that's just the way it goes. I mean, Packers drafted Jordan Love, and Aaron Rodgers said, hell with it, I'm going to go and win 2 MVPs. So I think that's part of the competitiveness as a player. You can't get frustrated if an organization drafts a player at your position. But I just think there needs to be a little bit more certainty. And certainly the Saints don't have to come out and say this is the plan. Yes, he's actually hurt. But I think when you stay silent for so long and you don't, player and organization, and you don't squash rumors, then those things just start to fly, and then they become truth.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, yeah, right now it's a lot of conjecture. Right now it's a lot of who knows, we're just kind of reading between the lines and reading the tea leaves here. But, if Derek is hurt and he does have surgery and he is out for next year and all that, then yeah, okay, whatever. Like this is a non-thing. But if he plays next year, if he plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1 or whoever, name your team, then it all but confirms exactly what we've been saying. And that is a crazy... I just can't believe the damage that Derek would do to his brand and his personality and his reputation and whatever that he seemingly cares the most about. Like, that's what's so shocking about this. Derek has seemingly been he wants to be this like hero, face of the franchise. I mean, it takes one to know one. He wants to be all that things. He wants to be loved. He wants to be celebrated. He wants to be seen as a stand-up guy, like all that. And if he does get what he wants, which is to be on a different team, playing for somebody else, it kind of goes in the face of all of that. It kind of goes in the face of what he's built up. Because like I said, whether you think he's justified or not, at the base level, he's lying about an injury. If he's not hurt, he plays somewhere else, whatever. He's over-exaggerating an injury to get what he wants. He's putting his line in the sand. He is going back on his contract. He is going back on his word. He is no-call, no-showing. If you're at a business, you know what no-call, no-show is. Like, all that's happening. So it's just kind of a weird, gross thing. I mean, it really is. Like, I'm not a Derek Carr. I have not been a Derek Carr stan, nor an anti-Derek Carr guy. At certain times last year, I've defended Derek Carr a lot last year. I defended Derek Carr. A lot of people hate Carr. A lot of people love Carr. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. When he's the quarterback of the Saints, I root for him, obviously. I think he's played well at times, and we've called it like we've seen it. But I think this is just out of character for him. And I think it's just one of those things where it's surprising it is played out this way. And to go back to like the trade thing, like Scott said, if he doesn't want to be here, get rid of him. Well, that's easier said than done. Because when you guarantee a contract like that, and you are the New Orleans Saints who operate on the thinnest of margins, where you don't have cash, you don't have cap room, you expect your invested players to play and play at a high level, and you're hoping to get by on the bare minimum as far as like extra cash and all that, when all of a sudden you have a sunken cost of $69 million or $40 million or $100 million at the most important position on the field, you can't just acquiesce, word of the day, you can't just acquiesce to someone and say, okay, yeah, sure, we'll trade you. We don't have a backup plan. We don't have another option. What are we going to do? Like, what do you mean? Like, it kind of reminds me of a little kid. If a little kid's like, well, I want a pony. It's like, well, we don't have a barn. We can't have a pony. Like, what are we going to do? Like, we can't buy a horse. And then if the kid says, well, I'm not going to school. I'm not leaving my room. Like, you don't just say like, okay, damn, I guess we'll get her a pony. Like, you don't do that. You don't just all of a sudden have Mr. Ed in the living room, right? That's how this feels, where it's like, Derek, we can't trade you, brother. We have this money tied into you. We are battling the cap. We are doing this. We have to move other stuff around. Like, we have a lot of other stuff going on. We can't trade you. You signed a 4-year contract. You're going to have to play this year. Like, that's just how it's going to have to be. And the fact that he has went, no, and just he's throwing a fit, crazy.
So how do you think Derek Carr look, in January, he said point blank, he would absolutely restructure his deal. He said his quote was absolutely, I do anything to help the team. Today, there's a report that Carr was maybe not happy about the restructure, that the Saints chose to go that direction. They did not need his approval to restructure his deal. in March.
Now, don't forget this, too. When Derek signed his original contract, the only contract he's ever signed with the Saints, when he signed that, this was in that deal. The whole thing where they don't need him to restructure. This isn't a surprise. Like, this was part of the deal that he signed.
Which is the path they went. How should those conversations, Scott, or how typically would it go with player, GM, ownership, agent? Like, who's involved in those conversations? How should that have gone?
Well, there's a lot of moving pieces, especially in this case, because you hired a new head coach. So the new head coach has to say, yes, I want this guy. Or the new head coach says, I'm looking to go a different direction. But I think the other piece of the puzzle is the Saints have been in such cap hell that even if a player doesn't want to be there, and this sounds odd, even if a player doesn't want to be there, maybe you can't do anything about it because of your salary cap situation.
Yes.
Are you just going to eat a bunch of money and not have a guy at the quarterback position that you possibly need to play? So I think that enters into it, regardless if the player wants to be there or not.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Scott. I just said that 5 seconds ago. But this isn't a backup linebacker making $2 million a year. This is the highest paid player on the team at the most important position. So if the highest paid player on the team who has a guaranteed contract at the most important position doesn't want to be there, you can't just be like, yeah, no problem. Sure. Because what are you going to do? You're paying him a ton of money. You don't have he's your quarterback. You don't have 20 quarterbacks on the roster. So what are you going to do? You're going to trade for another quarterback? You're going to go sign another quarterback? What are your options there? You're going to draft a quarterback? What are your options there? This is the hardest position on the field, in the sport, to just say, yeah, okay, we'll just make a change. Like, look around the league. How difficult would that be for any team if Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert or Tua or whoever said, you know what? I'm out of here. Like, that franchise would be cooked. The franchise is like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're out of here? We're giving you $100 million, and in those situations, a lot more than $100 million. We've sunk all this into you. We don't have a backup plan. You're going to give us 9 days to figure this out? You're going to give us 10 days to figure this out? With the options of Ryan Tannehill at the time, Drew Lock, Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, or the draft? Like, brother, this is like strong-armed robbery.
I think it's probably best for Derek and the organization, because Derek's been under a lot of fire. Listen, I like the signing. When they signed Derek, I thought he was going to be a good piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, same.
I supported him as long as I could. But this stuff happening in this offseason with a new head coach, the fan base is absent at the playoffs too many years in a row. There needs to be a little bit more clarity, because I don't think it helps either party. I think the natural thing is the fan base is going to get riled up and get mad at the player, especially with some of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
Scott Shanle is with us. What about how Derek Carr has handled himself publicly? Like, as a former player, guy that's been in locker rooms, and I'm certain has a degree of understanding and empathy for any player going through any type of situation, right? I mean, there's your teammates have been in locker rooms. Like, what do you think about the way that Derek's handled it publicly?
Yeah, I get it. I know, maybe it hasn't gone the way he thought it would, because, a lot of people are excited. The life after Drew Brees, bringing in another veteran quarterback. I know this because I went through it as well. Every year off season, hey, we need to draft a linebacker. We need to upgrade the linebacker position. Then you go out and you lead the team in a playoff Super Bowl run, or you lead the team in tackles. And sometimes it just doesn't matter. Stats don't matter. People are always looking to upgrade positions. But I think it's on you as a player not to be thin-skinned, to listen to the outside noise. The only approval you need really is from those in the organization, your teammates. But I think sometimes as a player, and this is the one thing I know about New Orleans, if you love the city and you love the fan base, they'll love you back. And there's no.
I think this is so over talked about. I don't mean what Scott is saying, but just the idea of like the fans versus Derek. You are an NFL quarterback. You are making $100 million to play for 20 weeks of the season, to play a game. If you are so thin-skinned that you are willing to do all of this because, Car Hater 1247 on Twitter is talking noise, or if you're that thin-skinned, you're in the wrong profession. Okay, I know that there was a commercial. I think it was Russell Westbrook where it was like a Beats commercial where he was getting onto the bus and people are throwing tomatoes at him or whatever, and he's like listening to like this calming music the entire way through, and he's just kind of riding with it like that. I mean, if you're a professional athlete, I have no empathy for a professional athlete who's getting this riled up by by fans or by Stephen A. Smith or by whoever. You know, it's like this is your profession. This is what you are in the game for. You know, you got to. That would be, I mean, on a very small scale, but that would be like if I'm like, you know what, guys, I'm not doing any more videos because, you know, duct tape shoe 6969 left me a couple mean comments. Like, when you're putting this kind of stuff out there, you got to expect or accept that's going to happen. Who cares? You know, so this whole thing where it's like, this ain't Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock. You know what I mean? Like Derek Carr versus the Saints fan. Come on, grow up. Like that, I think that's embarrassing, honestly. I think it's embarrassing if an athlete, a professional athlete, would do anything because of mean comments from the fans or whoever. I mean, I don't know. That just seems crazy to me.
No doubt about that. It is unlike any other city, but I've always said there's no other place I would have rather won a Super Bowl because nobody appreciates winning like the New Orleans Saints fan base. So I think, I don't know, is the hole dug too far to recover from it? A lot of people think so.
Yeah.
But if you go out and win, winning cures all. Look at the first 2 weeks last year when it looked like the Saints were going to go on and win the Super Bowl. Nobody had a problem with Derek Carr. It's about winning and performing, and that's what they need to do, regardless of who the quarterback is.
He's on Twitter at Scott Shanle, former Saints linebacker. Scott Shanle spent a decade, of course, in the league. Good enough to hang out with us here for a couple of minutes. Always appreciate the perspective. So, I mean, Scott, you said it. I think we all agree, right? They're going to bring in a young quarterback. Like, do you have a strong feeling about how that should look? Like, I mean, I don't know if you have a feeling about Shedeur at 9, if that's the thing, or just where they take a quarterback or how they manage that whole situation this offseason?
Without a doubt, it has to be a quarterback. It has to be a quarterback.
Well, you have to now.
I'm not.
Whoa, hold on. It doesn't have to be. Now, hold on now. Depends on the grades. Depends on how you like the players. Depends on how good you think these guys are. Depends on your board. I don't think it has to be a quarterback at 9. And I hope it's not a quarterback at 9. But you absolutely have to add to the room now because you only have 2. Right now, you only have Jake Kanner, who really doesn't even want it all. Right now, you just have Spencer Rattler. That's really the only quarterback the New Orleans Saints have is Spencer Rattler right now. Because Derek Carr, unless the game is being played in his living room, he's not going to be there. And then Jake Kanner physically can't do it. So you have Spencer Rattler. So you have to draft somebody, whether it's in the first round or not.
Saying just go ahead and reach, and you got a 3rd round grade on somebody, but somebody gobbled up quarterback. Now you're just going to reach at number 9. You can't do that.
Yeah,
but if for some reason one of those guys with a 1st round grade is there, you got to do it. And for a number of years, I think this franchise got set back in the 2017, 18, 19 years when they refused to draft a quarterback. Everybody in that building thought Taysom Hill was the future franchise quarterback, which is why they never drafted Lamar Jackson or anybody during those drafts. You have to. I think the salary cap is set up to, you got to take a chance to find a franchise quarterback. And if you don't hit it on this year, you do it again next year or you do it again the year after, because there's no other position that can change the face of your franchise. Washington Commanders are proof of that. Now, are you going to get Jane Daniels type player at number 9 this year? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this, like, I don't really agree with this sentiment exactly, because it depends on the player. Like, banging your head against the wall and drafting Ian Book after Ian Book after Ian Book after Ian Book isn't doing you any favors. Yeah, drafting a Jaden Daniels, drafting a Joe Burrow, drafting a CJ Stroud, drafting those guys, like, yes, that can absolutely catapult a franchise. Drafting Lamar Jackson, drafting Josh Allen, like, those are MVP level guys, right? But swinging and missing on backup quarterbacks or 3rd string quarterbacks or practice squad quarterback, that doesn't do you any good. So it does depend on who is there. You know, like, I don't understand because it's kind of like saying, you're kind of saying the opposites. Like, on one hand, you have to get better. The team has to get better. On the other hand, you do need a quarterback. Okay? You got to make sure you're doing both. Like, reaching on a quarterback in the first round who might not be that good or might be just a serviceable guy or whatever, reaching on him to fill the quarterback thing inherently drops down the rest of the team getting good because you're passing up really good players at 9. So you're better off. If your quarterback is graded high enough to be drafted at 9, sure, whatever. But reaching on one or swinging and missing on one or whatever just to say you're taking one to spite the rest of the roster build doesn't make a lot of sense. So I would say you have to continually evaluate quarterbacks, and maybe that was the mistake of the past, was that they thought, well, we're not really pursuing drafting a quarterback in the first round towards the end of the Breeze thing. Maybe they were thinking like, yeah, we like these guys, but we're not actually going to do it because we have Breeze, we have Taysom, we have whatever, we have this plan. So maybe we're only going to evaluate players that fall in between pick 45 and 65, whatever. And that lends to a bunch of Ian Books and Garrett Graysons and Jake Handers and whoever else, right? So maybe now, which it seems like it is shifted to where now they are evaluating Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart and whoever. I mean, they went to every quarterback pro day. If you were just throwing a football in the front yard, they'll show up. You know, like the Saints were evaluating everybody. So maybe that is the move moving forward. Evaluate the entire class. And if you do see a guy who's that highly rated, like we've all heard the rumors where Sean Payton loved Patrick Mahomes and loved Lamar Jackson, but they just let him kind of go, right? Like they let everybody just kind of fall, and we're not going to force our hands. Now, I think if you do love somebody, if you love whoever, Will Howard, Tyler Shuck, Kyle McCord, Quinn Ewers, Jalen Miller, whoever, if you love that guy, go get that guy. Go get him. If you think he's that good, go get him. Now, that's a big difference than just, you ever been to Shoe Carnival? Remember Shoe Carnival, ladies and gentlemen? With the big wheel, you could spin the wheel and it would go like on a 10% discount or whatever. What I'm saying right there is a big difference than just walking into the draft, spinning the wheel, and then just taking a quarterback just to say you took one. So you got to kind of marry those two thoughts.
But I think the one thing about Shedeur Sanders, I think there's holes in his game. But it's almost like a Reggie Bush persona and superstardom coming to the New Orleans Saints, bringing some buzz. And I think that type of buzz can elevate the play of everybody in the locker room when they know all the eyeballs are now on the Saints.
If they don't, let's say, let me throw another hypothetical at you, Scott. What if Derek Carr is unavailable, right? Like the shoulder injury is legitimate. He's going to have surgery. And just hypothetically, I don't know if that's going to happen, but that was a report last week. So let's say they don't have him this year. Do you do you draft a quarterback and sign a veteran as well? And how do you approach it this year?
Absolutely. I think you have to. If Derek is injured and he really, he cannot play this year, hopefully he'll still be a part of the mentoring process, because there's a lot of things that you can get as a young player from a veteran player that a coach just can't give you. So hopefully he's around the organization. That's first and foremost. But yes, you say you draft a quarterback at number 9, you have to go out there and get another veteran quarterback. And I think that was part of the downfall of this team last year.
But think about oh my God, I almost just spilled my entire cup of coffee all over my lap. Oh my God, thank you, God. Thank you for not doing that. Oh, that would have been bad. 4th degree scalding burns, because I'm not wearing shorts. But so think about how insane this is. And I'll say this too. I would be absolutely flabbergasted, absolutely shocked if Derek Carr is ever in the state of Louisiana again. The idea that he's going to mentor young quarterbacks, come on. Does anything that we've seen or heard in the last couple of weeks make you think that Derek Carr is going to be happily mentoring the Saints quarterback room? No. Okay. So think about what we're saying the Saints should do. Pay Derek Carr the most money of anybody on the team. He's not in the building. Have Jake Haener, who, LOL, have Spencer Rattler, draft a quarterback, and sign a veteran. Okay? So you've got about a 5 quarterback room, 2 of which either aren't going to play or can't play, two of which are a 1-year, 5th-round rookie quarterback, and the other is a newly drafted quarterback. And then the other one is a veteran who is so bad, or whatever, I don't want to say bad, but that he's not even on a team, okay? So, like, you talk about just the worst Sudoku puzzle possible.
They rolled into the season with Derek as a starting quarterback. He's our only veteran guy. You get two guys backing him up who, yes, you can have all the upside in the world. You can be excited about both of them. But there just was not enough experience at that position last year. So there's no question you got to go out and get a veteran if Derek's not available.
Do you have an idea of who you'd like them to add?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of it is, Kellen Moore's offense and what he's looking and the type of skill set that's available on the streets as far as a veteran quarterback. And, I think there's still going to be some movement after the draft. I think some of these teams that have veteran quarterbacks, starters, or backups, they're going to get somebody that they didn't expect to get during the draft, and there's going to be some roster movement, some releases coming up after the draft. So some of these teams are just going to hold tight because there's going to be some available veteran quarterbacks coming up.
Yeah, it's a sticky situation.
I mean, that's what's crazy. Like we said, Drew Lock in a video. An hour after the video, Drew Lock signs. It's like it's hot and heavy. So now you're getting down to literally 5 guys. I mean, you're getting down to like Rodgers, Wentz, Tannehill, Bridgewater. Like there is only a couple options left if you're going the veteran route, unless, like Scott said, after the draft someone gets released.
No doubt. Scott Shanle, former Saint linebacker, good enough to spend a couple of minutes with us here. He's on Twitter at Scott Shanle. Y'all give him a follow. And we always appreciate the time. Thanks for taking a few minutes, okay?
Yep, no problem.
That is Scott Shanle. It's After Further Review. Our Hump Day shows are brought to you by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. I can appreciate the candor. I mean, Scott used the word like it started as unfortunate and it's become frustrating, even angering. We wanted to reach out to Scott because he, on Twitter yesterday, whenever that story broke, he didn't really mince words.
No, he did not.
Man. His tweet was my 2 cents. I'll read it for you. My 2 cents about Derek Carr's shoulder injury news. If he's pouting because the Saints are going to look for a young quarterback in the draft, he's too thin-skinned to be your quarterback, and the guys in that locker room deserve better. A competitive person would say it's time to play so well, the young guy won't touch the field anyways. Nothing is promised to anyone in the NFL. Everyone's time comes to an end. Nobody's owed anything.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you read this, like, Scott Shanle is saying, without saying, he doesn't think he's hurt. And this part right here, if really injured, should be at facility and surrounded by surgery specialists today. Exactly. Like, think about the last time Derek played. And that's why some of this is so weird, where it's like he didn't play. He wasn't toughing it out and gritting it out at the end of the season, just playing and whatever. Spencer Rattler started 7 games. So it's like Derek could have had this surgery. Derek could have had this stuff going on the entire offseason. So that's another part of it where it's like, even if he is injured, it's a weird, the injury was handled weird. Like there was a infamous Scottie Pippen with the Bulls. He infamously didn't get surgery until like the end of the offseason because he wanted to go on vacation. He didn't want to be rehabbing. He wanted to go on vacay. And it's like, man, damn, that's like the most selfish thing you can possibly do, right? Like that's just a complete middle finger to your teammates and fans and organization. So even if, like, and that's why we keep saying all streets lead to this looks bad for Derek. And this just looks weird. Because even if he's injured, it's like, why the hell why did y'all do it like this? If he has been injured, why has he not had his surgery? Why is he, like, we've had months. Why has this not been, worked on or fixed? Second, why does this just come out now 10 days before the draft? Like all of that, even if he's injured, it's not a good look. If he's not injured, it's an even worse look. Like the way that this has been handled by everyone involved just sets it up to where, yeah, it goes from unfortunate to frustrating. And it goes from frustrating to like downright infuriating because of just, it seems like a huge middle finger to the organization for absolutely no reason. And it's just every day I think about it and I'm like, damn, I cannot believe this is actually happening.
If really injured, should be at facility and surrounded by surgery specialists today. Mrs. Benson didn't pay you $40 million a year to do car reviews on YouTube.
Get him.
Tough times will always reveal a man's character. You know what Scott alluded to there and in what he talked about with us? Every year, and the Saints traded for Scott Shanle from Dallas in Peyton's first year. And every year, they brought in linebackers to beat out Scott Shanle and Mark Skrmetta. Every year. And every year, those dudes kept throwing them out the boat. Go compete and win. So I can understand why Scott Shanle takes exception with where Derek Carr is coming from, because he lived that reality and was better for it. Hey, thanks so much.
Well, the go compete and win thing even has holes in it, where it's like, well, go compete and win. He isn't even. That's the injury thing. It's like that throws a wrench into that. And again, whether he's lying or not, but it just stinks to high heaven, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.